Hello, boxings. I teach us things. Ye species body here. Hello, species value nature system. These are three distinct volume sciences, being individual, grouped, difference, singular, slash S, in species volume. Bound while not. In other words, you guys don't know how to use our names A through Z, let alone countries' names, which is all of our names together, as systems tactical ulterior from the one that is nature, with the extent we could discern of nature's complete identity. But any extent we could discern, even anything made up, every individual part of it, every group part of it, and every complete part of it has is 1/3/5 identities of possession over the smallest finite detail as the order of the finite, as the value of what came true, what was actually true first. Because nature communicates by the difference between the value of what came first or the smallest finite detail, but per its system. See, we have entertained systems about positive or negative with syntax and with nature that were assigned, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, taken as shock and awe, to use, I believe, Donald Rumsfeld's phrase. And this, I was in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers, right before the attack context, and they were proven after that had been post dated documents from inside the court. And I noticed people that had also been involved with Connecticut courts, and they have been since too, who had also been roles planting evidences noted from people from influences from off campuses. They're putting fake transcripts. They're calling kids to the office, asking them questions, and planting fake narratives that way, and then spreading lies with that and lying about their motivations with it. There are proofs that they might be starting these kids with the intelligence community. Where how it's relative, where the intelligence community never had integrity. All identities of integrity have been used to pretend other, exactly the way the breaching method inside them assign them to. All natures of truth used for lies, like the true sacrifice of people's services, of the victims. You have the victims locked into being attached to fake words, fake ties, fake natures of ties to other, like the people with the name Keen. Increasingly, there are investigators, and people on off the state of Connecticut judicial offices that have been roles with names intercities planting evidences, fake ties and fake natures of ties to me, fake motivations for why and how. They timed where I was going to be and sought me out, like a Brian Bonin. His neighbors are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I never saw a Brian Bonin on a school in my life. He has something to do with the conjunctions to Two Rod Highway and to Route 3, which like the state judicial branch offices, and their roles with a whole bunch of different countries along Route 3, and people involved with Paul Zano. Planting evidence is also with Jewish and more child offenders, leaders of the kids. There is a principle. There is more principles tied to a proven principal child abuser, who I caught with worse with the Wethersfield Police Chief Cintron. And his I never met her, but his daughter's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed a whole bunch of ways, involved with other parents and kids, speaking fake things with the news too, and the courts and their family members at the same time. There is a Brian Silver And there are other prosecutors with the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts who had roles at West Hartford locations with Dean Judd and a Dean Alford, with the intelligence community next to Trinity College and next to Central Connecticut State University. That recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Through the years, more and more, they have roles with federal crime, federal evidences with intelligence families from Wethersfield, and ones that had pretended that were used to plant evidences against me. In other words, they'll tell you this themselves, but you have to ask them correctly. Like this Joshua Julian, because that's recorded on Facebook. But the FBI in other countries have been switching what's recorded on Facebook. They forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded my Saudi friend and others to be little tools in their investigations of the World Trade Center attack, leading up to it in that context and since. Central Connecticut State University has roles with a whole bunch of different countries. They're confessing and demonstrate through the demonstrations. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has roles with Detective Samuda. So then we have in New York City, the suburbs were designed before our founders were born. In New York City, the best schools and the worst schools, and the difference of that at the same time is employed to keep other things, others ourselves, blamed for the real causes of fake sciences and or sciences in collusion with the breaching method. The difference of that, the differences of the best school in New York and the worst ones, because black pupils, you have the suburbs tactically denatured and designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, while being landscape theaters, not realizing, because already had been sustained, sickly distinctly north and south before our founders were born, northern colonies and southern colonies, of which there were more than 13, of which themselves they were divided, of which themselves they were abridged nature and directed by the law to pretend other or to be sensed. I learned at Central Connecticut State University, they had laws where if people met outside of internationally monitored context to speak about building homes any other way, they would be hurt and made example of. Everyone around them would. Slavery had already been entrenched north and south, sickly distinctly. And that was and is left out, and that is also hyper. And so hyper programming is also capable of being, but we have to be appreciating lists and legal syntax in nature, our own names, with appreciation that these people won't let us. Oh, because we want to feel good. Shut up then. Shut up then. There's a difference if someone's calling someone a name to get to force equality of fact treatment nature, like the president has to. And like little kids have to call presidents because they don't know what to say. They're shocking all collusion with the sick type group things. Per Don Rumsfeld's been held again. WFSB attached me. That's one of the Connecticut news locations, and their family members and the intelligence next to them. This breaching method uses everyone and everyone next to them. Since I was a kid, people associated with a Brendan Leahy and his father. I never even saw him around campuses. One time when I was in high school, I was told his name a couple of times. He walked by me. And in other words, someone told his name to me, to him too. This is how they make people remember their other people's names. These are also people on Church Street involved with a doctor. I don't know what he looks like. He pretended he had a conversation with me. And he works. He was Mr. Gilmore, also one of the ones associated intercampuses with people on that street who have roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones since I was a kid. So they have overt criminal enterprises and private ones mixed with behavior racketeering with little kids and adults on and off campuses planting evidences. the family members of mayor and ties and workers and people associated with mayors, other natures of politicians, even Senator Lieberman and people with the intelligence community on off Town Line Drive and adjacent conjunctions to it involved with something to do. I never saw a DeMoro there at that shopping center that used to be Caldor. Now it's a Walmart. Used to be a food mart. Now it's a Stop and Shop. And the different managers when it was different food companies associated with the same house involved with wire crimes of the Wethersfield police. Of Phil Cololo. They also brought up the name Cololo with their confessions and and demonstrations, and with the name Sullivan as police as roles more stacking names with officers switching names with the name McGee and making confessions per their roles of making threats too as extortion roles. They're refusing to identify themselves as Connecticut courts. There is an Eric Burgess. There is a Mark Violet. There is a Justin Glavinskis. I don't know his brother's name. Never met him. There's a Joshua Stryker. These are people involved with military and private, and there are people with the name DeMauro Kerr and Cololo and Heather Hansen, who have been planting evidences with the intelligence community. Their roles with guns with it has something to do with the sides of next to parks. They've been planting evidences next to Millwoods Park. A Judge Joe Aiello also has federal evidences crimes, roles with child abusers. These are more people involved with the principal being child abuser. I caught them with him and doing worse than they put him in jail for. The people of his jails and the medical community, foreign and domestic, have roles with it. They attached me to fake conversations. They've been using investigators remotely because they've been using location/S remotely. Has something to do with their roles with the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Department of Transportation with people with the name Lombardo and their roles with drugs and medicines crimes with the kids, attaching the kids and their parents to fake uses of drugs and alcohol, trying to make trying to frame people. People at Hartford Hospital have a whole bunch of roles with the houses involved, with the Wethersfield police, and with their games with everyone next to them. Don't forget, they've been attaching me to fake conversations, fake ties, and natures of ties to other people, and pretending that to my family. They've been using the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie. They pretended through the mail with a Leahy family that I spoke with them or anyone else about police surveillance equipment. They're out of their minds, and people watching me through the TV. They're implying that the TV has means to watch people and that they're recorded themselves with federal evidences crimes. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living, which is like the mental health care part where they force people for mental evaluations. These are the same people that have been preventing writing in courts since I was a kid, where they have roles with the crime scenes and the criminals. They arrest a whole bunch of kids at once because they're keeping the branches criminally foreign influence. They're keeping used remotely names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the news at the same time, the lawyers, and the names that work for the courts, including judges and prosecutors and their family members. And the difference of that, who they know and don't. They never stop being. See, this breaching method showed modern countries, legal and semi-ancient countries and colonial countries, how to counter groupings like criminal insidiousness natures, like criminal enterprises, like countries as criminal insidiousness natures, how to like groupings of humanity as criminal insidiousness natures, wrongly, and to self-value that while being and having been used remotely, knowing that they wouldn't be able to communicate or afford communicated properly. With James Madison left us to communicate for himself. Therefore, increasingly relative to Marbury versus Madison, but increasingly relative is how that is tactically replaced. Beginning with a sequence shift with where and how our founders were defined as those people behind James Madison and his plan, who then went and found George Washington to agree to that plan to be our first president. And we know Jim Crow laws, one of the things Jim Crow laws we know, there was a breaching method was still entrenched too deeply for them to get out. They told us to get the Constitution unabridged. That means no slavery. Oh, but there's no jobs and thing. How am I gonna? Then there's that's why. In other words, you got sick people with isms and difference, while they're tactically delusions raw too. That's why you have to get people on paper. So you have your leader. You have your leaders like a grown man. What's his name? Robert De Niro. Such a letdown when he got into the politics like this. In other words, he goes up there. He goes, fuck Donald Trump. In other words, New York has the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts in nature. Only allowed. Blamed on other things, others ourselves. And self-cultivated roles with that propagated by the human fact, human nature breaching method, black pupils. Here! Fix the fake conversations with me about with the WFSB pretended, because they have more intelligence next to them involved with this. And there's time. You guys are playing games. I've been asking since before the World Trade Center attack. Don't forget that Connecticut has roles. They're hiding. And where's the Scaloras involved with this? What's this police officer switching names? Coming to my house, force his way through my door. Because these are also police department. The Wethersfield Police Department had me in a fake conversation with police there as a kid. I never even went there as a kid. The other kids they had there, they had them plant evidences. They had them bring up subjects that they didn't even bring up. In other words, and have conversations with themselves. Those kids gave affidavits that they did that. They made them say what they didn't want to say. They also had kids that steal things and pretended that was me because I traded a legitimately bought radio for it. They said that you guys change. You guys has other people roles putting fake things in databases at the courts through time. These are the people intercities next to the campuses too, planting evidences and putting fake things in the databases with the tricks rolls and with the news and with foreign and domestic medical and with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, the same ones. Mr. Abruzzi made one quick fake exception of me, knowing Joe DeMauro. I don't know him. The only time I ever saw him at Highcrest School. He's roles increasingly with the intelligence community on my street. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed people with the name O'Brien and Cololo have roles with a whole bunch of people next to the state capitol and involved out of the state capitol of Connecticut. I never saw Ray Cololo. I never had anything to do with Ray Cololo downtown Hartford. One time they tried to make an exception next to Trinity College. They are planting evidences and fake motivations with the intelligence community as their roles timed with a whole bunch of different countries and overt criminal enterprises and private ones. As the people involved with wire crimes, the Wethersfield police, who are too much cowards to put one name and sequence on paper. And with the courts, get them on paper, one name and sequence. Please tell Judge Napolitano, do what's right, and because his Facebook page is involved since before they left. He left at Fox Connecticut News or Fox News. Fox Connecticut News has roles with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, with his co-defendants like a Thaddeus Grabowski, involved with a whole bunch of kids who are now adults who live from my town, who have been planting evidences with their neighbors and people who live around Mayor Gold, increasingly involved with whiting forensics, with federal evidences crimes, and with child offenders, also with other mayors before him, and people associated with him still. People from England too, involved with the next to the Connecticut educational building. These are also people with the name Riley and Jewish themed and people who count they're Jewish. In other words, people with, like, Paul Zano repeated the word Jew a whole bunch of times, but has collusions with the Jewish mayor, planting evidences, fake ties in nature, the ties to me, to his family. His daughter stuck fake things in databases, fake ties in nature, the ties to me, by doing a little trick, coming around the corner and keep screaming at me after she affected other people to do it too, like the year before that, and I never say anything about it. And then she did another video. It has something to do with Earth Day, and they were doing, like, it's not just politics. This preaching method employed politics as one of the things that it designed, a propagated, self-cultivated, used self-value uses of it to blame on other things, others ourselves. Things like the breaching method, things that the breaching method caused, things that the breaching method is, which I'm not a lawyer, but we're going to call it a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. And we're gonna reveal a anti-hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise act, the IACE Act. You guys keep playing games, getting by waiting. See, that's why too. I thought I heard somewhere. I don't know where I heard it. Trump's voice say, because you guys try to understand things. No, one of the things that they have to hide, obviously, is they share. Russians and Americans share what they call peace here, what they call peaceful nuclear energy. That while they have suits and ties on, while they have roles with counters and exceptions, still has collusions with the breaching method that designed the suburbs, let alone the cities. Like that, we all agree. No, but we need order. No, but they're the border. They have the border as a topic to measure and maintain. Fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature itself as criminal insidious nature, styles of logic in nature that can't defend the nature of debate in that and afford to be, let alone to project theories, let alone convictions proper regarding it. The problems are not just at America. They have border problems at countries A through Z because there's an identity problem. Because names A through Z have deployed one. You have all kinds of scams with the price, and there's fluent between the difference of that. You have a whole bunch of victims / hyper victims, victim predator, hyper predators, predicate acts with facts, roles, needs, and nature that are speaking about crimes, as the breaching method knew they would. Forgiveness is because we have to show the breaching method. We have to show the hyper evidentially recorded guilt that all nature, the Department of Corrections of Wethersfield / Harvard, the way it's set up like that, it never stopped being used remotely. Criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence, 3 ways. The state judicial branch offices. It never stopped being used remotely. Criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, 3 ways. All exceptions in exception nature show the identity of hyper simultaneous is 1 way, 5 ways group is 1 way, 3 ways group. And even where in Harvard it shows it's teaching about exceptions. Exception nature uses the way we know finite groups together. Progressively bound. Progressively positive or negative. And neutrality has 3 identities of relativity. To the identity of hyperrelativity, which is 5 distinct and identities of hyper invisible but still discernible. That's why we need more than 1 name for the verb, for example. Okay, I just got so hungry. Thank you. vaccines, I tears name.